Have you ever wondered how different life could be if you couldn't hear the world around you? When I was just a kid, bundled up against the winter blistering cold, sled in hand, ready to conquer the snow-covered hill behind our neighbor's house, I veered off course, heading straight for a dangerous drop-off onto the neighbor's driveway. My brother's shouts were lost in wide open space. However, one shout managed to catch my attention and I stopped just in time. It's easy to think that this near miss was due to my deafness, but that's far from the truth. I wasn't disoriented because of my inability to hear. I was disoriented because of the blinding wet snow. Being deaf doesn't make us immune to the usual childhood antics. When I was a little girl, it was filled with a huge imagination, constantly making scenarios in my head. One sunny afternoon, I thought it would be a grand idea to pretend that my dog was a strong and powerful horse. As I galloped around, lost in my fantasy, I didn't see the huge tree branch across the path I was using. I tripped and fell, but it wasn't onto a soft grass. I went headfirst through the front window of my house, a surprising twist, right? But before you jump to conclusions, let me assure you, this misadventure wasn't because I'm deaf. It was a result of my wild imagination. Back when I was in school and my mind was filled with the day's lessons, I was exiting the parking lot. I nearly was hit by a car. My heart pounded, my breath hitched. It was a close call that could have ended badly. Again, this didn't happen because I'm deaf. It wasn't my inability to hear that nearly got me hit by a car. It was my failure to look before stepping onto the road. It was a momentary lapse in my attention, a simple mistake that any kid could make. Often, society tends to attribute our mishaps to my deafness, rather than my human errors. A common example of this is the news stories we often come across, where a deaf person's death on train tracks is blamed on their inability to hear the coming train. But just pause for a moment and think about this. Was it really their inability to hear that led to the tragic incident? Or was it their decision to walk on the train tracks, a place well known for its danger? Interestingly, statistics show that more hearing people die in similar incidents each year. Yet it's the deaf who make the headlines, their deafness taking the spotlight. It's a narrative that feeds into misconceptions and misinterpretations about the deaf community. But let's be clear, they didn't die because they were deaf. They died because they made a poor decision, just like anyone else could. There are times when being deaf might pose a problem, but it's not the deafness that's at fault. Imagine a deaf person having a run-in with the police, especially at night, when the bright lights blur vision and spoken commands fall on deaf ears, and the darkness making it nearly impossible to read lips. The problem lies within the system, their failure to adapt to situations, and the lack of understanding and empathy. This is not a unique issue for the deaf community, but a societal problem. Consider a system that claims to protect us, often ends up posing a threat due to a lack of awareness and understanding. The fault lies not in our deafness, but in a system that too often fails to understand and accommodate it. We are either born this way, or it develops over time. We cannot help it, and it would be really nice for people to learn sign language and realize we are just as capable of normal people.